You're listening to Shoe In, covering the ins and outs of all things footwear, from sneakers to heels, loafers to slippers, and every type of shoe in between. Brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. And now your footwear insiders, Matt Priest and Andy Polk.
Welcome back to the show, folks. It's the Shoe In Show, the Footwear Industries podcast. These are challenging times for our industry, for our consumers, for our lives, all the disruption that's occurring, all the fear that we have. And, you know, during these difficult times, Matt, what we're trying to do is, keep upbeat, but also keep honest as well. We're not going to fluff anything up, but we're gonna stay hopeful, stay positive, but we're gonna give the facts. And that's why we've been doing this Shoe In Show now for several years. We have over 200 episodes, and the whole goal of this podcast is really to share insights and ideas and best practices. And now it's really about helping share intelligence among different leaders in our industry.
Yeah, that's for certain, Andy. And I think we're at a time when we have to clear out the fluff, as you said, and we need to kind of communicate with folks and speak to people who will bring the knowledge and the experience and the honesty that is needed, while at the same time maintaining this footwear community that we love so much. It is a unique community amongst other industries, and as we've seen over the past few weeks, it's been nothing short of astonishing at how people have come together and are communicating and are trying to figure out next steps forward, whether it's sending letters to Congress like we're asking footwear workers to do right now, or it's sharing best practices on FDRA calls. And so that's why we wanted our next guest to come on to kind of talk about what he's doing from his perspective to run his business as effectively as he can. And he's been he's come on the show a multitude of times, and that is David Kahan, who's the Chief Executive Officer at Birkenstock Americas. David, welcome back to Shoe In Show. I wish it was under better circumstances, but you're one of our favorites, so thank you for coming on during these times.
Well, thanks, guys. It's good to be amongst friends when we're in a situation like this.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are amongst friends. You and I are friends. We've been emailing back and forth over the past few days. You talked about being on a war footing. Take us behind the scene, take us to the Birkenstock war room as you're trying to navigate with each passing hour, there's some new item of information that you're trying to digest and analyze. Walk us through that process and what your current thinking is right now, David.
Well, I think first off, you guys said it in the opening. This is an incredible community. I mean, I would say, Matt, I probably spoke to easily over 100 people in the industry last week, from the chief executives of every major retail customer we have to the chief merchants to dozens and dozens and dozens of mom and pops across the country. I could tell you I probably got 15 calls from competitive brands, seeking some just alignment on what do you do? And I think, there's no right answer for every enterprise has their own priorities. But if I go into what's driving our thinking is, number one is I'm a big believer in this psychological term called radical acceptance. And it means if the situation is what it is, like put on your big boy pants and accept it and make decisions. And I think what's happening right now is you have a lot of people that are just going, wasn't life great 3 weeks ago when we were all out to the movies and going to dinner and we were talking about what we were shipping next week? And yeah, it was. I mean, 3 weeks ago on a Thursday night, I had 10 people in from Germany and our merchandising team and our sales team, and we were all out to dinner, like having a great time and sending people to the airport to fly back to Europe. That right now I have people in 4 different countries being quarantined. But it is what it is. And I think the first step is you have to accept it. I mean, and things may never be the same. And I don't use that term like wartime CEO or wartime president lightly. We have gone into the mode of, do you want to just survive or do you want to thrive? And I think there are decisions that you need to make now that will, that you'll look back on a few months from now and maybe a few years from now, and they may be defining moments. But the number one thing is people shouldn't be calling each other up or dealing with their team saying, oh, woe is me. It is what it is. That is the radical acceptance. And it's not going to change unless people do what they need to do collectively and individually to protect their organizations. And right now, we're trying to think out of the box, but the two guardrails for us are never compromise our team's health and well-being and never compromise our brand equity. And I think a lot of companies right now are going to be challenged to make very near-term decisions that are not consistent with what they've done over the long term. And we are holding back from that at all costs whatsoever, because we don't want to make a decision now that we look back on and say it was the wrong thing for our team, for our customers, for our consumers.
I think that's a great point, David, because I think a lot of companies that won't survive this have focused on product and not philosophy, meaning they don't have strong values. They don't focus on teams, they focus on price and product. And that's great in good times, but in bad times, when you don't have a mission and a vision and a community to fall back on, that's when people start to struggle. And it's good to hear, I think first and foremost, you're exactly right. You take care of your people first. But secondly, I think one of the most important things that's always overlooked is communication. So people are looking for guidance, right? They're looking for a CEO and they're looking for bosses to tell them while they're working remotely what they need to work on, like what's the tasks, like how do we keep busy, how do we keep moving forward. So what are you guys doing to communicate and keep people task focused? Is it conference calls? Are you guys using Zoom? And then what are the everybody's working from home. So what is it a tip? Are we still working the way we were working? Are we still working on the same tasks and looking at, the next season? What are you telling your folks in the backroom operations?
Yeah, it's really interesting. About 3 weeks ago when this stuff started to look like it was heading downhill, we had a contingency plan. And I give my team, especially my IT people, just mind-blowing respect, because I'm not an IT guy. I mean, I'm pretty capable, but the system-wide architecture of the network and what people do, that's not my forte. So we went into, in 72 hours, absolutely creating the full functionality and capability so that every single person on our team can now do their jobs. And think about it. It's not just, you got your laptop at home. I have a call center. I need people who are, dealing with us when they call in to what used to be my call center with 100 people sitting shoulder to shoulder in cubicles. Now, those calls are driven to somebody who may be sitting in their den or their bedroom taking the call, and the person calling has no idea where they are. So in 72 hours, we created incredible functionality for the team. So we were a bit ahead of the state of California when they said, okay, don't defy the sheriff's orders. The offices are closed. So between offices that I manage in California, in New York, in Montreal, and in Brazil, we're all remote right now, but everybody hasn't missed one beat in capabilities. Even things like, when you think about it, you have accounts payable, accounts receivable, you have people doing graphic arts, you have payroll, all of the things that you need to do remotely. So I'm very proud of the team. Secondly, every single functional unit. I mean, if you saw, my calendar on my phone, I'm invited to every meeting, but obviously I'm not going to every one. But every single functional unit, meaning customer service, finance, operations, importing, sales, everyone has an every single day check-in. so that each manager has a check-in call with their team just to make sure that everyone has their functionality and their capabilities and to stay on top of things. I've got an incredible leadership team here. They bought into everything we're doing. Nobody's sitting here saying in the worst of circumstances, this is something I would have prayed for the industry or for mankind. Obviously not. But I mean, I'm waking up as if the Japanese just bombed Pearl Harbor, and it's a different day on December 8th than it was on December 7th. And if you don't accept that, you can lose 2 weeks going, what the heck happened? And we moved into very high gear last week to do some things to protect our brand and to protect our business. And more than anything, protect the basics of cash flow and the well-being of our employees.
Yeah, David, you talked about Pearl Harbor Day, December 7th, and waking up to December 8th being a totally different day. We're now on March 23rd, 2020. What does this look like? How does your contingency plan, how long out, how far out have you developed this? How are you thinking this is going to last? What's going to be different? I mean, these are all probably unanswerable, so you could totally deflect as you see fit. But I just want here, as we sit on the 23rd of March, 2020, what is David Kahan thinking about as it relates to the line of sight as how this plays out over the long term?
Yeah, it's interesting, Matt. We've been managing this business now for 8 years between me and our leadership team and the people we've added here. And I pride myself on this ideal of perfection. Like when you do a forecast, it's perfect, from how many units you're going to import to what your sell-through is to what it generates in margin, and just this idea of always shoot for perfection. Well, I shared with my team over the weekend. I remember I did executive education at Columbia and at the Columbia Business School, and this came up in one of the classes, and it's actually from the Military War College. And you learn this and you go, oh, God forbid I should ever be in a scenario like that. But you may have heard of it. It's this term called VUCA, V-U-C-A. It's a situation that's by and large defined by VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And it's taught at the wartime college. And God forbid you should ever be in this situation running a company where bullets aren't flying at your head. But my God, this is the definition of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So what I've told my team is forget perfection right now. That's over. You just need to do every possible scenario. So probably like our competitors and the other brands, we've tried to forecast out. The forecast we had 2 weeks ago that we would go to sleep at night and go, our fiscal year ends the end of September. I could have gone to sleep 2 weeks ago and slept well and told you on October 1st, here's what my inventory is going to be. Here's what my cash is going to be. Here's what my margin was for the year. Within a couple of, not even $1 million, within a couple of dollars. I mean, we'd be that close. Well, now throw that all out the window and say, what is our business going to be if business on the wholesale side is shut completely for 30 days, for 60 days, for 90 days? And then, okay, let's say stores open up miraculously on, pick a day, June 1st. On June 1st, does everybody just come back and it's gangbusters and there's this residual effect and everybody's shopping? Or does the average American realize that they have less money in their pocket? I mean, unless you work for Google or Facebook or, Walmart or Costco or maybe the company that makes Purell, odds are most Americans are going to have less money in their pocket. Now, will they care and shop, or will they go, oh my God, this is the makings of, the recession on steroids? So now you got to look and you got to say, how long will we be out and our partners be out? When it's over, how quickly will it bounce back? Second to that is, will all of your partners bounce back? I mean, do people have the cash on hand to support their organizations for the next 90 or 120 days? If they don't, what do they do? I have receivables out there because I just shipped the bulk of my spring that I need to manage my business. And last is really when you wake up and you realize, as you guys know, as much as there are people in this country who believe that, it's America first, it is, but we're in a global world right now where there's nothing that's not interconnected. I have a supply chain right now where, we have manufacturing facilities that are shut. You have material suppliers that are shut. We just finished all of the development on spring, summer 21. Now you say to yourself, forget spring, summer 21. What about your supply chain for fall? How much can you make? When are you going to be able to make it? What are the needs? And like I said, it's so ambiguous and so complex, you just have to focus. And that's what we're doing this week. We're kind of waking up from last week being, okay, get capable, get functional, figure it out, to now being, okay, in every circumstance, what do we think it can be so that we can financially and from a product flow standpoint model the next 6 months so that when it's over, a brand like ours can come out and be even stronger than we ever were before.
I love that thought, David. It is the optimism. It is the how do we use this challenge to sharpen ourselves and to make ourselves stronger, more efficient than ever before. You talked as we started this conversation about discussions with over 100 different people over the past week and all aspects of the industry. You guys have great relationships and rely heavily on the network of independent footwear retailers here in the U.S. What's your view on the independents versus the mass retail and the big box and those other outlets that you sell through? How concerned are you on the independent side as it relates to the rest of the industry?
I'd say I'm more concerned about the independents, but what I will say is I love when I'm watching, the news conferences and they talk about small businesses. Small is relative. If you have one store in the middle of South Carolina, that's small. Even if you're a couple of $100 million footwear company, that's still relatively small compared to $100 billion companies. The bigger companies have the same problems. If an independent retailer is laying off 2 people in their shoe store and a footwear chain with 1,000 stores has to figure out, what to do with their employees, it's the same issue. The only difference is, quite frankly and bluntly, how much cash the larger entity has in their war chest versus the independent retailer. And I think the challenge right now is, obviously, the bigger the company, the more they have access to cash, whether they need it. The challenge right now is most of the small retailers, it's exposing the business model. And the business model is you sell in April and you pay your bills in May, and then you sell in May and you pay your bills in June. And most retailers, from an independent standpoint, are in very low cash positions at the end of winter. It was a pretty weak overall boot season, weather-wise, for most of the independents. So I don't think they were cash rich. I don't think they have war chests sitting there to go into this. And most of them are in a pretty dark state right now. And I think the question for people like us, who have very significant relationships and visibility with them, is how do we support them through this? But secondly, are some of them, and I'm not saying all, potentially, if it gets to that place, do they just bankrupt their businesses and say, that's it, I'm going to bankrupt my business and I'll either walk away and I'll go to dental school, and I don't mean that lightly, or I'll restructure my business. And then, quite frankly, if that happens, the people that get left holding the bag are the vendors who are here trying to support them. And I don't mean to be too, glib about that, but all of us on the vendor side who support them, are in a little bit of a tenuous situation right now, because obviously most of them, if not all, can't pay bills over the next 90 days. But when 90 days are over, what changes? They're still going to be behind the eight ball. And I think we could conceivably see a significant level of independent retailers going by the wayside. I mean, this could be the one generational shift that changes commerce across the country pretty significantly.
Yeah, it's dire. Hopefully our policymakers in Washington are, I think there's a disconnect between what you see at the top and a lot of really smart people working at Treasury that are in the shadows that have been doing really good work for many, many years. So we have very competent, what some people may call bureaucrats. We have really competent people in government that remember the '08 crisis and worked on that, and now they're working to try to figure out where we go next. Some of the topics that I hear from friends are bridge loans. Obviously they're working on a huge package today, several $1 trillion to send out to companies and the public, and I think there'll be more of that. So we hope that whatever happens, the policy will focus on the right people in need. David, let me ask you too. Obviously we're in sort of a survival mode and thrive mode, but also this is also the time where you see a lot of people get really tricky, and you guys have been dealing with some tricky people for a while now. First it was Amazon that you dealt with, and now I see Costco. They're probably selling a lot of toilet paper right now, but also they've been selling some Birkenstocks. This is probably a time when, you got a lot on your plate, but you can't ignore IP violations during this time either, can you?
Yeah, we not only didn't ignore it, we took a very aggressive stance. And I think you're right. I think there's possible desperation that can lead to bad behavior right now. And I think it's very dangerous. And I think brands that really, really care about their equity above everything else need to remain vigilant 365 days a year. I mean, believe me, we took very serious action, and that's why we made some public comments on what happened in Costco, same as we have with Amazon, same as we have with any unauthorized seller. But, if you're Costco right now, and you're the only guy open in town, and everyone's going in there for toilet paper and whatever other supplies they need, and you decide this is the time to put Birkenstock shoes in the center of your store because the lines are backed up 100 people deep, and they might grab a pair of Birkenstocks that you've gotten via illicit means, it's just bad. And I honestly believe, and this is something I repeated last week, to most people in the industry I spoke to, I think you show your character in times of extreme challenges. I mean, nobody remembers what Winston Churchill did other than when, Great Britain was being bombed. And I really believe this. And my analogy is everyone in the industry is standing right now at the side of a raging river. And to get to the other side, some of us need to get in some boats and paddle together. And if you jump in the water alone and you try to swim to the other side, I don't care if you're Michael Phelps, you're not going to make it. And you're going to look like you're flailing your arm. And right now, all we're doing is circling our wagons and picking the right partners that are going to get in the boat and understand that on the other side, there's going to be a bright future. It might look somewhat different than it did 2 weeks ago, but it's going to be a bright future. And we're going to be there, and who we're with is really up to them to show the character and how they're willing to work with us in the same way we're willing to work with them. And I have a lot of confidence that the vast majority of our retail partners, personally and professionally, genuinely care about each other. And we've got a lot of smart people that can figure it out without, making crazy short-term decisions that might challenge the relationship, knowing that Every decision is not going to be right. There's no right or wrong decision. Every decision is not going to be perfect, but you do need to have guardrails. And like we said, our guardrails are we won't compromise the health and well-being of our organization or our people, and we won't compromise the health and well-being of our brand. Other than that, everything's kind of up for grabs to discuss.
So people can definitely get their toilet paper at Costco, but if you see Birkenstocks, maybe don't pick those up, right?
Well, I think we've taken care of the situation.
Good.
The lines really started. I just thought it was pretty bad character that at a time when, this is happening to go, oh, welcome to spring. We've come across some Birkenstocks.
Right.
I mean, anybody can be a pariah right now and say, I've got money. I'll buy your inventory right now. I'll give you cash in hand. Doing that's wrong from both sides. And it's just something that we're being hyper-focused on.
Good. Well, David, as always, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate your insights. And we'll be putting this episode out soon, and we'll continue to do these episodes with leaders of our industry in order to share what they're thinking about, how they're planning, share intelligence across the industry so that we all can get through this together as a community. And David, we appreciate you coming on and being open and honest about how you see things and sharing a little bit about what you guys are doing and why. So thank you.
Well, thanks, guys. Having the representation and the intel coming out of Washington is more vital now than I think it's ever been. And we appreciate it, and the folks on my team, and I know across the industry do. So thanks. Keep up the good work.
Thank you,
David.
And
appreciate
just to remind people, every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, FDRA does a call for all its members. We're about 90% of the industry now, but we do a call for all our members, and that's not just for executives. It's for designers, development, sourcing teams, whomever wants to get on that call. You can email us at info@fdra.org. Many of your companies are members, and so we'll give you access to that call so you can listen in just to stay up to date. And we are trying to, in real time, track economic policy going through Congress. Obviously, our main focus has been duty relief for many, many years. But in times of need, we cover everything in Washington, D.C. for our members, and we try to take complex policy items and put it into common language and help kind of analyze things and give action items for the industry. So to stay up to date on those things, we'll also be mentioning those on the calls as well as our constant newsletter flow and these podcasts. I can't urge people enough to please stay plugged in. Please stay plugged in with FDRA. We are your voice in Washington. We are breaking through. We have been on multiple calls with policymakers. We have been sending letters to policymakers, advocating on behalf of small retailers, big brands, everybody in our industry. So please stay tuned to that. We're going to wrap it up today. We usually do a fun session at the end, but I think in the current circumstances, we want to be cognizant of the challenges that everybody's having out there, and we want to make sure everybody's safe and sound. And please follow whatever local instructions that you have from law enforcement or from leaders in your communities. And let's take care of each other during this time, and we'll all come out, as David said, stronger. The future's bright. We just got to put up our umbrellas right now and get through the rainstorm. But at the end of every rainstorm, the sun does come back. So with that, Matt, we'll catch up with some more leaders today, and we'll keep pushing things out. Yeah,
we're all set, Andy, and again, want to thank David, and just as Sandy said, stay plugged in, because we are your source for footwear information as it relates to the coronavirus.
Yeah. So, folks, Shoe and Show, you can find us at shoeandshow.com. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes. Please subscribe. We'll be posting multiple episodes a week as we go through this to help everyone. to keep information flow up. You can also go to kicksovercoffee.com, where we have other interviews with leaders posted there, just trying to make sure everybody has information flow so that no one's missing any opportunities or thoughts or ideas to weather the storm together. And with that, on behalf of our team, until next time, stay safe. Shoe In is out.
Shoe In has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit fdra.org.